Since this TV has already made the rounds, I'll spare you all of the what's in the box specs. You'll find a link to those details right here. And since you all have been asking about this one since it was announced, let's just get right to it. Sony's flagship Bravia 9, we have it, and yes, it's the best TV I've seen all year. Getting the 85-inch Sony Bravia 9 mounted on our wall was really easy. I've moved quite a few 100-inch TVs this year, so the 85 was kind of like a holiday for my back. I still use my favorite purchase of the year, though, the super handy lift to get this one on the wall, link in the description. And even as the TV powered up, I immediately noticed how much brighter the 9 was compared to our reference 98-inch Sony X90L, not to mention how much faster the Google OS felt. Now, I was hoping Sony had finally decided to make all 4 of their HDMI inputs 2.1, but they are still divided between 2.1 and 2.0. So if you have more than one gaming console, this may be an issue. Now, out of the box, the 9 launches in its standard picture profile. As a trained professional, I can see that the standard profile isn't exactly right, but it's honestly not that bad either. I've learned that many of you may even prefer its slightly cooler and bluish tone. The image is bright enough that you may never actually experiment with any of the other profiles, but if you care about having the most, quote, accurate out-of-the-box profile, standard isn't it. I measured a delta E of close to 9 for grayscale, and color came in at a little over 7. Remember, we need a delta E, aka margin of error, to be 3 or less if any picture profile is going to get the accurate seal of approval from the factory. The Bravia's cinema picture profile measured better without sacrificing the TV's brightness. This is pretty uncommon for a cinema profile, as brightness tends to be one of the first things that takes a hit in order to see improvements elsewhere. This profile gets the accurate seal of approval out of the box with 0 adjustments. I measured a delta E of around 3 for both grayscale and color, but I wouldn't call cinema perfect. Reds were slightly oversaturated, which tinted the whole white pointer grayscale a bit too yellow. Blues were also just a little bit juiced, though the overall image was still really good. Normally, I would tell you to place the 9 in its cinema profile and leave well enough alone, but stay with me because the 9 can do even better. If you want the best, most accurate out-of-the-box image, put the 9 in its professional profile. The professional profile measured even better than cinema. Both grayscale and color came in at under 3. This profile looks amazing. Here's where I would say, save yourself time, energy, and money. Skip professional calibration and just hit play. But this is a review, and for those of you who settle for nothing but the best, here are the results I achieved after performing a full calibration on the 9. Using the professional profile as my starting point, I arrived at a delta E of less than 1 for grayscale and color, making the Bravia 9 officially the best TV I've measured all year. The biggest difference before and after calibration is the Sony naturally wants to crush blacks while boosting luminosity. This allows the TV to have that inky rich contrast that also make colors just pop. While OLED-like blacks and a little extra brightness never hurt anybody, remember, we are going for the most accurate picture. When you correct these minor errors seen in the professional profile after calibration, the Bravia 9 is essentially perfect. Do you need to calibrate the Bravia 9? I don't think you do. Even out of the box, the professional profile is close enough to the calibrated results. Why not turn off the test patterns and just start enjoying your damn television? But before you click buy now, I'm guessing the one spec every net nerd wants to know about is brightness. Sony has never really been known for producing a blazingly bright TV, at least not compared to, say, Samsung, TCL, or Hisense. But this time, Sony has come to play. The 9 is the brightest display I've seen from Sony thus far. With its real-time local dimming and peak brightness settings set to low or medium, the Bravia 9 has no problem holding over 1,000 nits of real-world brightness in any of its picture profiles. Set those same settings to high, and you're going to enjoy sustained brightness levels in excess of 2,000 nits, with peak runs hovering just under 3,000 nits in both SD and HDR. Are there brighter displays on the market? Yeah, sure, but not many TVs balance light output with image accuracy like the 9. And the more time I spent living with the 9, watching TV shows, sports, and movies, the more I kept thinking about how balanced it is. Yes, I have seen brighter TVs. Hello, Hisense. I've even seen some pretty impressive processing this year. TCL, way to go. You got my attention. When it comes to a natural looking image, one can still argue that OLED has that on lock, but for how long. Now that the Bravia 9 has shown up, OLED has a real fight on its hands. This is the best all-around TV that I've seen in 2024, blending together everything that I've loved from my time spent with a number of TVs, all rolled into one. And I gotta talk about the improvements Sony has made with the 9's processing and contrast. Watching movies like Top Gun Maverick and Deadpool Wolverine in the professional profile using our Apple TV was a massive improvement over our Sony X90L. The 9 image is brighter, has better backlight control, and improved contrast. In general, its overall sharpness and image accuracy made streaming look better than I believe it ever has before, even rising to the level that I bet you would mistake what you were watching for physical media. This is where the 9 truly impressed me. Regardless of the source or material, everything we watched was elevated. For example, we watched the fall finale of ABC's High Potential streaming on Disney+, and it looked great. Tyler Sheridan's Lioness on Paramount+, my God, epic. Christie's new obsession, La Maison on Apple TV+, may be the best looking modern HDR I have ever seen on the 9. It blows OLED out of the water. Hell, even 720p news and sports broadcasts look more high-res than they had any right to. I'm not suggesting that the 9 makes SD or 1080p signals look as good as native 4K, but it sure does elevate their quality enough that I think you'll spend a lot less time worrying about the signal. And it's no secret that Sony treats backlighting and local dimming differently than the competition, and as a result, they have caught some flack for blooming issues in the past. The 9 should silence the critics, as it has virtually no blooming. Subtitles have no visible halos or streaks, even when the text is placed over a dimly lit scene. Another area of improvement is Sony's lack of DSE or dirty screen effect. The 9 had virtually no DSE when viewing gray or solid color test patterns. In fact, its edge-to-edge light uniformity is among the best I've seen from an LED display. And getting back to sports, the 9 is hands down the best TV I've seen this year for watching college football. Sony's processing and real-time image enhancements are a godsend at handling horrific quality broadcasts, often masquerading as HD or 4K. When it comes to motion, the Sony handles the chaos on the field brilliantly. Action tracks smoothly and accurately with minimal artifacts and smearing, neither of which I would attribute to the 9 anyway. More often than not, it is the signal that is usually the culprit, unless we're watching a Hisense, in which case it's absolutely the TV. The detail on the players' jerseys and the specular highlights on their helmets, oh man, they were so exceptional that they were almost Madden-like. Speaking of Madden, gaming on the Sony was another highlight. While gaming-centric dashboards that allow users to quickly access or change visual settings for a better gaming experience, those are nothing new. I really like Sony's implementation the best. It's very minimal and it's absolutely quick to respond to remote adjustments. I had zero issues playing my favorite games like Last of Us Remastered and EA Sports PGA Tour in 4K, even at frame rates up to 120 Hz with VRR and HDR enabled. If you are a PlayStation 5 user, using the console with the 9 will be ultra simple. The 9 will automatically adjust the PlayStation for best picture. Other TVs require you to do this manually, so keeping your gaming all in the family definitely has its advantages. Speaking of keeping things in the family, I connected our theater quad system to the 9, and I have to say, the all Sony experience was pretty awesome. Now, Sony upgraded its on-screen menus with the Bravia 9. Google TV on the 9. It's snappy and gives users access to built-in streaming services such as Netflix, Max, Apple, and more. And while I still prefer the user experience of our Apple TV 4K to that of Sony's built-in Google OS, I don't find any reason to be concerned with Google's performance in my testing. And as far as sound goes, the 9's internal speakers, they sound pretty good. They are an improvement over the ones in our 98-inch X90L. That said, I still recommend adding a soundbar or something like the already mentioned Sony Bravia Theater Quad. Speaking of the Quad, I was finally able to hear Sony's S-Center Sync in the way that I believe Sony intended. S-Center Sync has been a real letdown with other Sony TVs that I've reviewed, and I'd go so far as to say that it sounds outright terrible on our reference X90L TV. Here, S-Center Sync sounded good. Does it help with intelligibility? You know, maybe a little, but I also think Sony uses the TV's internal speakers very conservatively compared to the rest of the Quad system, which is why I'm still not 100% convinced that S-Center Sync is a must, especially since the Phantom Center performance of the Quad system is already so good. And while the 9's off-axis performance is out of this world good, the screen's reflectivity could be better, especially if you sit off to the side. In a light-controlled room, the 9's viewing angle is almost 180 degrees. If you have windows in your room like we do, you may be bothered a little bit by the reflections if sitting too far off to the side. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it's still worth a mention. And I've already kind of mentioned this one already, but it bears repeating. Despite the 9 being the brand's flagship, you are still stuck having two different HDMI formats, 2.1 and 2.0. This means that 2 of its 4 inputs are the 2.1 variety and the other 2 are not. This hasn't been an outright issue for me. Nevertheless, the optics are problematic for Sony, especially on a flagship TV like the 9. And my only other complaint, and the reason I will not be ending my review by telling you all that I bought the 9, is that you can't get one in a 98-inch model. The 9 is only available in 65, 75, and 85-inch sizes. If there was ever a TV that needed to be bigger, it's this one. The 9's picture is so cinematic that even die-hard projection enthusiasts could probably be swayed to ditch their fancy flashlights for a 9, if only it were larger. I'm going to keep comparisons brief because there's really only one other TV this year that has impressed me as much as the Bravia 9, and that one is TCL's new 98-inch mini LED TV, the QM8. I know we made the Sony X90L our reference, mainly because of its slightly more accurate projector-like visuals, but the TCL is the better, brighter TV and the one that got away. The TCL is the only other TV on the market right now that I would even consider apart from the Bravia 9 here, except the TCL is available in sizes up to 115 inches, which in this house is likely enough to give it the W, even though I'm confident Christy will agree the Sony is better. I get that the 115-inch TCL QM8 series is cost prohibitive, but the 98-inch model we reviewed just got a price reduction and now costs almost the same as the Sony Bravia 9 here. The Sony is better, it just ain't big enough. And while we're on the topic of big TVs, I would replace our X90L in a heartbeat with a 98-inch Bravia 9 if one existed. The difference in quality between the two isn't even comparable. Sony has managed to solve all of my complaints about the X90L, like light uniformity, not the best off-axis viewing, and even improved brightness with the Bravia 9. The X90L is still a great TV, and I know that a lot of you bought one on our recommendation. But that's how good the 9 is, because next to a already known great TV like the X90L, it's easy to see the improvements Sony has made. Aside from that, the Bravia 9 smokes everything I've seen from Samsung this year, and I even prefer it to LG and Sony's own OLED models in 2024. As good as OLED is mini LED, it has closed the gap, and with respect to the Bravia 9, it may signal the end of the road. So what else is there to say other than Sony has made arguably the best LED display the world has seen yet? Watching movies on the 9 took me back to my early days as a reviewer when the world transitioned from CRT to early HD plasma. The 9 has a similar leap in quality. To say that no TV has wowed me since, that would be disingenuous. Still, the Bravia 9 is something special, and I think when we all look back at displays in moments in AV history similar to that leap to plasma and flat panel displays, the Bravia 9 will be seen as a high point. Now just make it bigger, damn it. So that's it. That is finally my take on Sony's brilliant Bravia 9 TV. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Worth the wait? I love this thing. I mean it. I would slap leather and already be an owner if it was just bigger. But if you aren't chasing those 100-inch, 115-inch sizes like we are, I gotta know, is this TV a must-have for you in 2024 and probably beyond? Because I don't see it getting beat anytime soon. But now it's your turn to tell me. So sound off in the comments below. And if I missed a comparison or some details that you want a little bit more information on, ask your questions in the description below. You never know, could end up on next week's Unplugged when we find out if Christy liked this TV at all. Anyway, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead, ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Christy's left for you down below, know that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we both do here. And both of us thank you very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for me today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound or sight of your system is you. So happy listening, happy watching. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.